We're going to get into our top 10 moves of free agency. Starting at number 10, we have Ryan Kelly going to the Minnesota Vikings on a 2-year, $18 million deal, $9 million guaranteed.
Mm-hmm. Oh.
He's only allowed 10 quarterback hits over his 121 career starts for the Colts since 2016.
Yeah, Ryan Kelly, very underrated signing. There's a lot of guys that go out there and they get paid big bucks, right? There's a lot of guys that go out there and you see, $20 million annually, and you even saw the Packers sign a guard to some big money, and you just assume that the guys that are getting the huge contracts are the ones that are worth it, but that's not always the case. Ryan Kelly is someone that is getting under $10 million annually. He graded out as like a top 15-ish center last season. And it's always going to be a plus to get some offensive line help. So I like this move.
I do like this move too. I think for the Minnesota Vikings, bringing in more offensive line help, especially with J.J. McCarthy coming off an injury, so you want to protect them as much as you can. And you also want to remain competitive. 2 years, 2 years, you said 18 mil, 9 mil guaranteed. Yep. I think he's a little bit older in a sense. So, but that's a good deal. That's somebody who can come in and still give you really good quality production. And you already have a couple guys on your offensive line that are really, really good, in Darrisaw and O'Neal. So I think that's a good signing.
I think it was a great signing. You look at their interior offensive line this past season. Garrett Bradbury, Dalton Risner, and then the other guard, I'm even forgetting his name right now. Like, it wasn't a good group at all. And I think the Vikings, a big reason why they were unable to run the football is because they didn't have good guard play. They didn't have sufficient guard play whatsoever. I think Ryan Kelly now signing there, he is going to be the center. That makes things interesting as to where Garrett Bradbury is going to play. I think it automatically slots him in at one of the guard spots. He might be better at guard. I think the big issue with him is that he doesn't handle power that well. But a Vikings offensive line that is improved, I think it does wonders for J.J. McCarthy. And we have to see J.J., in a real NFL game and a real NFL start. One of the Achilles heel of the Vikings offense this past season was Sam Darnold and his performance under pressure. He was one of the worst quarterbacks in the NFL under pressure. Now, even if this offensive line isn't the best, but J.J. McCarthy is better under pressure, you can still get a better offensive result. Mm-hmm. So I'm looking forward to seeing how this move shapes out and how much they improve their offensive line with this move.
Yeah.
Number 9, Carlton Davis to the Patriots. 3 years, $60 million. $34.5 million guaranteed.
Left Detroit. This is a sneaky move because I feel like New England is building something over there defensively. You already got a guy in Christian Gonzalez who's like one of the best in football in terms of the cornerback position. I think defensively they're going to be a really good unit, and I think right now they're in a position where you have a guy in Drake May who you want to build as much foundation as possible around him. And I think they're starting to do that in on the defensive side. Offensively, I think they'll go through the draft. But defensively, bringing in Carlton Davis, who's somebody who's physical, can man up on you, can get real, like he's really strong for his cornerback size. I like Carlton Davis. He was good in Detroit. He was good. He was really good in Tampa Bay. I think this is a good move. I think this is somebody who can come in, bring that veteranship, be that second or third guy next to Christian Gonzalez.
Yeah, this was a good move. Carlton Davis last season was graded out about the 29th corner per PFF. He was 38th in terms of coverage. He allowed a passer rating under 90 when he was targeted. He was really good for the Lions, right? Lions dealt with a ton of injuries last year, but Carlton Davis was someone that they made a move for in the offseason, and we all loved. I feel like 2 years ago he was more highly regarded than last year, even though if you look at the numbers, he had almost arguably one of his best seasons of his career last year. And I was a bit surprised at the number, right? He got $20 million annually. I thought that was a little bit higher than expected, but he also went to New England. And if you're New England and you're a rebuilding team, you're going to have to pay up for some of these guys. And you're going to have to go over what the market expects or what the market was, because I'm sure Carlton Davis had some other offers, maybe even from Detroit, who, ended up signing DJ Reed to $16 million or so a year. So they got a bit cheaper there at corner. Maybe they weren't willing to go to that $20 million mark. But Carlton Davis is a really solid corner. Now you're pairing him with Christian Gonzalez. That's a really exciting cornerback duo that you got there. Unfortunately, my dream of Travis Hunter maybe going there to pair with Christian Gonzalez is probably out the door now, but it's a great move for New England. They got talent. They got way more than that. We're going to be talking about at least one of the person that they signed on this list, but good get for them.
Well, that's a big reason why I'm so excited about the signing. It's the pairing with Christian Gonzalez. Now, I think Carlton Davis, the numbers don't always look the best for him, even though he had a good season, because of the scheme that he plays in. He's a bump-to-bump man coverage corner. He's going to get in your face. It's going to be a lot of press coverage. And a lot of times, if you're not disciplined in those moments, you can give up big plays. But he is somebody that he takes receivers off their games. He's a trash talker. And now him being the second corner, not being the primary one with the primary assignments, which is what he was in Tampa Bay, which is what he was in Detroit, now being a second corner next to Christian Gonzalez, that's going to make opposing number 2 wide receivers' life a living hell with him covering them. So I think this was a fantastic signing. The Patriots have made a lot of great moves, and they're kind of bringing that physicality to their defense. This player is not going to be on the list, but Robert Spillane, he's one of those guys that brings physicality to your defense. Carlton Davis fits that exact identity. Next name up, number 8, Dre Greenlaw, going to the Denver Broncos, 3 years, $35 million. Now, I was struggling with this because the Broncos made two really good signings. They signed Talanoa Hufanga, and they signed Dre Greenlaw. Hufanga's an honorable mention on this list. I think Dre Greenlaw is a better player, and I also think he fits what they needed more, which is a true coverage linebacker.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Greenlaw this past year was basically a wash. He played in 2 weeks. He was coming off the injury that he suffered in the Super Bowl. Obviously just running onto the field was super unfortunate. But you look at the 2 years prior, his coverage grade, as you mentioned, Joel, in 2022 was an 82.6. 2023 was a 79.5, where both were amongst the highest out of all linebackers. And we've seen him. He's a proven veteran linebacker. Your only concern is he is coming off, even though, 2 years removed from a torn Achilles, right? And he's 27, about to be 28 years old. But I think for the value you got him at $35 million. Do you have the guarantee? What the guarantee was?
Yes, $35 million guarantee. Well, not. I know that maybe half of it is guaranteed.
Okay, yeah. Assume $20 million of it is guaranteed. It's a good deal. I think of what the Jets gave Jamin Sherwood, who has 1 year of production. Now, this is a guy that's more of a rising star. If you think he could be that at 25 years old, he got 3 years, $45 million with 30 guaranteed. And Greenlaw, the 2 years prior, was better than Sherwood of this, even arguably this past year. So you're banking on him returning to form, really for both of these guys, for Hufanga as well, right? He dealt with an injury-riddled season in 2024, but he had proven to be, when he's at his best, like a top 10-ish, 15 safety when everything's going right and he's in the right scheme. So this Broncos defense is loaded. This can be the best defense in football next year. I don't think that's a hot take. They were a top 5 unit, top 10 absolute worst last year. They just keep on adding talent. And their two probably biggest weakness last year was linebacker and was that safety. We know all the talent they have on the defensive line. We just interviewed Nick Bonito. Shout out to him. Zach Allen. Of course, you got PS2 out there. Riley Moss. They have so much talent on this team that even if one of Greenlaw and Hufanga hit and they return to their versions from 2 or 3 years ago, it's going to be a massive win for them.
They showed the Jordan Love throw across the middle of the field in the playoffs. Yeah, they showed that just now.
Won't happen again.
No,
absolutely not.
Never say never.
Absolutely not.
Also, Dre Greenlaw brings that physical presence that you want to Denver. He fits right in terms of the play style that they want, just the energy that they want to bring. A guy who can cover, who can also tackle really well. Get running backs in the backfield. Like you mentioned, these are two guys that's kind of coming off injuries, season-ending injuries. Yeah. So the pressure is, because you can put Hufanga in the same situation, honestly, in terms of just top 10 guys that's been picked up. Just the hope is both of those guys come in and they play still at a really high level, because both of those guys was trending. Hufanga, being younger, he was trending towards that stardom. Greenlaw was a star in a sense. But for Denver, man, bringing in these two defensive guys and you already have an elite defense, that's huge. Two guys that fit your scheme, fit your style, just packing it all into the talent that you already have.
I feel like the biggest win is the fact that these are two players that they aren't just good players and you're taking them from a situation. These are two players coming from a championship situation. Two players that know how to win a lot of games, that have been in a lot of high leverage marquee games. Yep. And I feel like for a Broncos team that is a very young team, they have a lot of young players across their defense and offense. You kind of need that veteran leadership. So I think they get the best of both worlds here with these value signings and players who can maybe return to the Pro Bowl, All-Pro form, but also that they're not going to let you down in big-time moments, because they have been in those situations before. So you mentioned it. I think the Broncos defense is absolutely loaded.
So
like
good.
PS2, Riley Moss, Jaquan McMillan, Brandon Jones, Hufanga. You now have Greenlaw at linebacker, Alex Singleton coming back from injury. Then on the defensive line, DJ Jones is one of the best run stoppers in the league. With John Franklin Myers, Zach Allen broke out last year, Nick Bonito, Cooper. Like, this team is absolutely loaded. And I think the next step for the Broncos is just finding that that Robin that Sean Payne was talking about on the offensive side of the football. And that can happen through the draft now. You know, they filled up all of their holes on defense to where they don't really need to spend any of their three first round picks, like first round, second round, third round pick on
offense,
on defense. They could spend it all on offense.
I would like them to get like one veteran wide receiver just because, you know, if for whatever reason Luther Burden and Ted are off the board and you're looking at the receiver, whether it's Golden or whoever else, that you're already relying on Mims and
Troy Franklin.
Thank you, Troy Franklin, to take one of them to take a step up next season to be a wide receiver, probably 3 at a minimum. So I would like them to get, even if it's somebody, you know, not out of this world good, even Amari Cooper, that at least you have some stability there, that you go into the draft, you're going to be taking a guy round 1 or round 2, but you don't feel the pressure to have to play them day 1.
Yeah, next move is DJ Reed going to the Lions, 3 years, $48 million. And you mentioned it. This is a discount of what Carlton Davis got. And the Lions, I think, kind of replaced everything that Carlton Davis brought to the team. DJ Reed is a great man-to-man coverage corner. He's a very physical corner as well. I think my biggest question mark with this move is the fact that I've always viewed DJ Reed more as a second corner, not as a primary number 1 corner who can shut down the side of the field. So do they still expect Terrion Arnold to take a step up? And it's Rakestraw coming back from injury. So there's some question marks there, but they didn't invest too much, and DJ Reed has been one of the most reliable and consistent corners over the last 3 seasons.
He's awesome. Go ahead, Riff.
Yeah, I think DJ Reed is good. I agree on the sentiment. I've seen him too much get torched up by number 1s, and that's no slouch to DJ Reed. That's just not, I don't think that's him. I think he's more of that secondary corner, a guy that can complement your top guy, and what he was doing with the Jets, complimenting Ahmad Gardner. I do think though this is a good get, because I still think the secondary for Detroit is a little naked outside of Branch and Joseph. You know, I think they do need cornerback help. I think Arnold is trending that way. Now you bring in a guy who's a little bit, he's still in the prime of his career, but he brings that veteranship. He's been on elite defenses before. He's been under Robert Saleh. He knows what it takes to kind of sturdy up and be a top guy. So I like the signing. You know, they lost Carlton Davis, but they brought in DJ Reed, who I feel like they're in the similar tiers, or, you know, definitely close in that regard. So this is a good move for Detroit, just trying to shore up that secondary help.
And talk about all the injuries they had. DJ Reed has only 1 year of his career he played less than 14 games. He has been one of the most durable and consistent players on the Jets over these last 3 seasons. I felt like when Joe Douglas signed him way back then, it felt like a steal, and it still feels like a steal, right? Yeah. I don't remember off the top of my head, maybe he's getting $13 annually, and to only get a $3 million pay raise when you were going week in and week out, when you had all of these jokes about Sauce being washed last year, he was playing a consistent high-level football, and he's been, like I said, one of the most consistent players on this Jets defense. We talk so much about Sauce and Quincy 2 years ago having an all-pro, and Quinnen Williams being an all-pro level player, that DJ Reed always felt like he was overlooked and undervalued, but he's going to be a big loss for the Jets, and he's going to be a big get for Detroit too. Carlton Davis and DJ Reed, I really don't see as much of a difference. I think both of them are, you know, CB2s, high-end CB2s that if your CB1 goes down for a couple of games, I think you could get by, but it's not ideal if that's your, you know, your guy going into it. But with all the talent that Detroit has, and if you can assume that Aiden Hutchinson can get back to health, and you have the pass rush that Detroit has, that just makes it easier for this Lions secondary to really get going. And last year was such a lost year for the Jets that they couldn't stop the run, number 1, right? So when it's so easy for a team to run the ball on you, those passing opportunities, play action becomes more open. You don't have as much help because you need to commit more people to the run because you have no really gap integrity. So just such a mess for DJ Reed last year that even still, through all of the injuries the Jets dealt with and coaching changes, he was always showing up. He was always playing like a top 20-ish corner. It's one of my favorite moves of the offseason.
But you know, I thought Aaron Rodgers was the biggest culprit that we were talking about with the Jets.
There's a lot of reasons.
These sound like a lot of problems, right, Rick? Sound like a lot of problems.
Rodgers, one of them.
Next move, Josh Sweat going to the Cardinals, 4 years, $76.4 million deal, $41 million guaranteed. So this is really like a 2-year deal. Mm-hmm. He was a 20th graded edge rusher according to PFF overall. And I feel like this is something the Cardinals needed. He reunites with Jonathan Gannon now. Yep. And you look at the Cardinals defense. defensive line is very thin. This immediately becomes the best player on their defensive line.
Easily. Josh Sweat was awesome for you guys last year. My only concern with this is when you go from probably the best defensive line in football to probably the worst defensive line in football, you're going to be seeing more double teams. You're going to be seeing more chips, right? You're not going to have a Jalen Carter that every single week is taking up double teams. Milton Williams. You're going to have not Nolan Smith on the other side. You're going to have number one defensive edge coverage against you. So his production might not be what we've seen in years past. But if he's getting those looks, that means other guys are going to have opportunity to win one-on-one. Now, that becomes the other issue with the Cardinals, that they don't have really a ton of talent, the defensive line opposite of him. But for a Cardinals team that has really had very minimal to no talent defensive side, it's a bit surprising, too, when usually you bring in a defensive-minded coach, they make some sort of move within the first couple of years to be like, all right, this is going to be my guy, whether it's a top 5 draft pick or a huge free agent signing or a big trade. Jonathan Gannon really hasn't done that. This is really his move, his stamp of approval on this defense. Josh Sweat coming off a championship. He knows how to win. He's bringing a veteran leadership to this room, too, that has a lot of young guys on it. It's one of the best moves of the offseason as well.
Before you go, Riv, isn't it kind of like, I feel like the Cardinals are kind of getting forgotten about. Like, people forget that this team won 8
games.
Yeah.
They could have made the playoffs last year. You know, they could have won the division. I mean, they were in a lot of games. You know, They blew 2 games to Seattle, games that, unfortunately, they're on Kyler Murray. They blew a game against Buffalo early in the year, but there was an opportunity where you look like, hey,
they
wait
were
a minute,
up like 2 touchdowns.
Yeah,
in the first, right?
this could be a game. I think Arizona's offense fizzled out towards the end of the year, and their defense did get somewhat better towards the end of the year. You saw a complete flip. Josh Sweat is a really good player. I think, like that was mentioned, the only scare with him and Milton, who we're going to talk about later, is how do they look now being the dominant guys on their defensive line? You know, we had so much talent on our defensive line that at any moment Nolan Smith could break off, Sweat could break off. Like, Jalen Carter was really the only one seeing consistent doubles, and with all due respect, he deserves that. He's one of the 5 best defensive linemen in football. So now Sweat goes to Arizona, and it kind of reminds you of Montez Sweat to Chicago, where they need a guy, whether it be elite, great, good. You just need something to tilt the scales towards your favor. And I think Josh Sweat in his Philly stat has been really good. You know, I think that's
been super consistent.
Yeah, he's somebody who can come in and can give you quality play time. He's somebody who can come in, he can get to the quarterback, he can finish plays. And I think that's what Arizona needs. Now, you got to just fill out around him. And I think Arizona's defense is really, really young, so you have to have grace with them. But Josh Sweat also isn't an old player. Yep. So that's the benefit. He's not somebody who's 30, 31. No, he's like 26, 27 years old.
He's a big game player, too. I'm looking from Next Gen Stats. Postseason pressures since 2022. He is 4th on this list behind Chris Jones, Karlaftis, and Nick Bosa.
He locks in. Yeah. It's a good move for Carolina.
You could have argued he should have won Super Bowl MVP. You know, he was that great defensively. Okay. It was a team effort defensively, but, I mean, let's not forget.
Second half?
2 sacks.
2 sacks? Okay.
Yeah, he had 2 sacks.
He was great.
Yeah, he wrecked the game. You know, everybody did for the Eagles defense. That's how great and locked in they were.
Whoever was on that right side, brother. Woo! Fooled.
Now we're getting into our top 5 moves. Drew Dahlman is at number 5.
Here we go.
3 years, $42 million. The Bears snagged the best center available on the market, not only from a production standpoint, but also from an age standpoint. This is a young center, and they have 3 offensive linemen now that are young in Braxton Jones, Darnell Wright, and Drew Dahlman. They brought in 2 veterans with Jonah Jackson and Joe Thuney. This alone is a top 5 move, but when you consider all the other moves that the Bears made around this move, the Bears are having a fantastic offseason.
Yeah, the Bears are winning another offseason, and that's one thing they can do. They can win off seasons. Listen, they saw the problem this year, and they attacked it immediately. You know, 3 offensive linemen in the span of 3 days. You know, and guys that are really good, guys that have that mixture of youth and veteranship. I'm always, you know, me being a Philly fan, I'm always in the belief of you can never have little to no offensive linemen. Always put a mixture of young guys with old guys with middle of the pack. Get the veterans, get the guys who are washed, the guys who are trying to find their way, and get the young guys. Kind of put them together so you can have this committee, and I think that's what Chicago is doing. They have guys they've drafted. Now they have a young player coming in Drew. Now they have a veteran that's coming in from the Chiefs that we're going to talk about. So they're kind of putting that collection together to where they're going to have a really good offensive line to where Caleb has no excuse. Like, this offensive line is going to be amazing. It's going to help in the run game too, and that's kind of what you needed. You needed somebody you needed an offensive line that can really alleviate some of that pressure.
Yeah, Drew Dahlman was awesome last year. This was a guy that ranked as a top 5 center per PFF. And talk about making a mark on your team. Talk about setting the culture for what you want to do. That's what Ben Johnson and Ryan Poles are doing right now. You make the move for Joe Thuney. You make the move for Jonah Jackson. And now Drew Dahlman. This is one of the best interior offensive lines. Snap of a finger. You went to one of the biggest weaknesses to Thuney, and Dahlman is one of the best guard center combinations, and Jonah Jackson's not too bad too. But Riv's right. This was the number one issue with the Bears last year, right? Outside of offensive coordinator and play calling, I think that was pretty high up on the list too. But it was the offensive line. It was giving Caleb time. It was giving him easy reads as well. And they've invested a ton in this offensive line so far. They're going to continue to invest into this offensive line as well. I wouldn't be surprised if they bring in some depth pieces, draft guys on potentially day 2 and day 3 in case for injuries, anything like that. Chicago eventually, these offseason wins got to come to regular season wins. You know what I mean? Like, at some point, you win 2-3 off seasons in a row. It's got to come to wins, but you got to feel great about Ben Johnson, what they're building right now.
I love moves that when they happen, nobody sees coming, and I think that's what Charvarius Ward was going to the Colts. We had him mocked to so many different places, but I think that the Colts would have been something that we never guessed in a million years, and they've needed cornerback help for a while last year. They were in rumors to getting a L'Jarius Sneed. That never materialized. But looking at Charvarius Ward, his contract, 3 years, $60 million, $35 million guaranteed. He is getting $20 million annually, which is less than Carlton Davis is getting.
I believe so.
Yeah. And Charvarius Ward, at his very best, is one of the 10 best corners in football. This is an outstanding move for the Colts. And a Anarumo defense who, for the first time, he is now looking at all the talent that he has. He's like, wow, this is night and day from when I was on the Bengals. We have so much talent, so much at his disposal. The Colts can take a major leap defensively next season, especially when you take into account Laiatu Latu potentially breaking out in his second year too.
Yeah, when's the last time the Colts had a really good corner? Vontae Davis?
Gilmore,
yes, Gilmore. They don't really punch out corners too much, and I think Charvarius Ward, like you mentioned, didn't see this coming. Definitely was a wild card. Definitely needed for the Colts. And we talked about it earlier, the Texans don't have this stranglehold on the division. This isn't a team that just completely has this lock on the division. No, they barely got out of it last year, just because the division was so bad. Somebody had to win it, and it just happened to be the Texans. And you see the Texans not fixing their offensive line, but the Colts, they're bringing in guys. They want to bring in Charvarius Ward to kind of shore up their secondary. I still feel like they have talent on the defensive line with Buckner. Latu could potentially break out. And then offensively, I love the guys they have. I'm a big Downs fan. I love Downs. I still think Michael Pittman Jr. is a good wide receiver. I'm blanking on the third guy. A.D. Mitchell is a dog.
Alec Pierce.
Alec Pierce is cool. He made some big plays. I'm not going to
disrespect. Yeah, good deep ball receiver.
Yeah, he made some really good plays. So you have 4 guys that can stretch the field, maybe outside of Pittman, but he's a big contested catch guy. You just need AR to be there. I think the defense is going to really be the backbone of this team next year. But if AR can, like you mentioned, if he can just be consistently good, or even good for more than what he was last year, I think this is a team that can win a division.
Yeah, Charvarius Ward this past season, obviously dealt with some really serious personal stuff that, caused his season to not be as great as the year before. Because 2 years ago, we're talking about him being one of the best corners in football. He was one of the reasons why the 49ers went to the Super Bowl. This past year, when you just look at his numbers and the stuff he produced, you're like, oh, he fell off. But we know, God rest her soul, his daughter died. So that's just something personally he had to deal with, right? And that's something that he has to go to work every day dealing with. And he said months ago that I'm not coming back here. I need a new spot. I need need new scenery. I need to live somewhere new because it just brings up bad memories. Yep. And that's part of the game we don't think about, right? When guys have off years, you never know what's going on with their personal lives. But Charvarius Ward, when he's on, is one of the best cornerbacks in football. And this is a Colts team that definitely needs some help in the DB department. $20 million annually does feel a bit high compared to some of the cornerbacks going around, but if he's able to return to what he was 2 years ago, this is going to be a steal, right? If Charvarius Ward is playing at a top 5 level, if he's able to go out there week in and week out and shut down your opposing wide receiver one, we just saw J.C. Horn become the highest paid corner, get 25 annually, right? So It would not surprise me. Ward bounces back. He'd be better than Horn next year.
Yeah, you look at that, it reflects that in the guarantees. $35 million guaranteed. It's like a year and a half and 3-year deal only of guarantees. So this is very much like a prove-it year for him to see where he's at mentally, where he's going to be at on the field. So, I got high hopes for the Colts and Charvarius Ward. Number 3, Milton Williams to the Patriots. Now, this is funny because he at first was going to sign with the Panthers, and then the Patriots maybe threw him a little bit more
Definitely
money.
a little extra
I mean,
cash.
4 years, $104 million. This is another guy, like 1 year of great production, getting $100 million, and you look at $63 million guaranteed. So this is more so also like a 2-year deal, 2 year of guarantees. But Milton Williams, I think, is awesome, and I get all the concerns around him when you talk about, oh, but Jalen Carter, the attention. But Milton Williams, there were games this year where he looked like the best defensive player for the Eagles on the field. And you can maybe count maybe 3 to 4 games where it looked like that. Milton Williams had the second highest pass rush win rate percentage in the NFL. He was that great. And you look at the Patriots, it's not like they don't have anybody. Keon White, I think, is a young budding star. Christian Barmore, he had blood clots this past season, but if he gets back to his old form, which is he's just a year removed from, he is also a great defensive lineman. Then with Milton Williams, I'm not a big fan of the Harold Landry signing. One thing he does provide is he's a good run stopper, and so is Anthony Jennings, but they don't have a real threat pass rushing wise opposite of Keon White. But this is still very much a great move, and Milton Williams is going to make a defensive line really good.
Yeah, him and Derek Brown could have been special. It could have been special in Carolina. That would have been arguably the best interior defensive line combination in the NFL. But yeah, I do think New England at the 12th hour came in and been like, all right, they're offering 95, we'll give you 104. Come here, because I mean, to only get, was it 60 guaranteed? 66 guaranteed. It's a bit of
63.
It's a lot of money guaranteed, but for what his actual contract is, 100 million, 105, whatever it is, that's not bad for guarantees. Like, that's something that in a couple of years, if it doesn't go right for you, it's not going to completely destroy your cap situation. I thought he was going to get more guaranteed money, to be honest with you, but he got this money because he's 25 years old, and he got this money because he dominated on an Eagles team where, like you mentioned, Joel, there were games where you saw other all-pro level talents, and he was playing just as good, if not better than him. So the combination of the production that he put up, plus his age, it's very rare to have someone 25 years old entering free agency. Most of the time, you want to keep that talent, but Philly's just so damn loaded. They didn't really have the luxury of keeping him. Plus, they had Jalen Carter. They're like, we can't keep two of you. But it's an awesome signing for New England. This is probably the most talented player in this free agency class, especially when you think he could be just scratching the surface. And he gets to partner up with Mike Vrabel, who's been able to, year in and year out when he was with Tennessee, get the most out of his players. Absolute home run move for New England.
And he's hungry. Like, this is a dude fresh off the Super Bowl, played amazing. Now he has his own team. Now he feels like, I just shared a defensive line with Jalen Carter, who's getting all the love. He was a top 10 pick, understandable. Nolan Smith and them boys. Now I get to go here and create my own legacy. Now I get to go to New England, stop another quarterback in Josh Allen, in that same division. So Milton Williams was great for us. He was so awesome. Him and Jalen Carter were really the two dudes that changed the whole dynamic of our defensive line. And, getting $26 million a year, dope for him. And I think Milton Williams being 25, being able to only scratch the surface, still with an insane amount of potential, they're getting a star. And I think for New England, bringing in young talent like that who can still reach some different level at their primes, at their peak, you got to overpay a little bit, especially with the way he performed in the Super Bowl.
Now, the next move, Davante Adams going to the Rams, 2 years, $46 million. Now, this wasn't part of the moves that happened today. It happened Sunday. But, this is a great move, and the reason why it's number 2 is because while Milton Williams, I think he's probably arguably the best player available in free agency, Davante Adams is going somewhere where he's going to help them get to a championship, potentially.
It's an awesome signing.
Him and Sean McVay, man.
It's an awesome signing. That's why I was always super hesitant about Davante Adams pairing up with Rodgers again for round 3, because you heard the teams that Rodgers can be interested in. It was the Steelers and the Giants and, maybe Minnesota, but it was all at least 2 of those 3 teams where it's like, you got no chance in hell to win a Super Bowl, right? And Davante Adams is getting up there in age, right? He's over 30 years old, but he's still playing at a top level. Aaron Rodgers, whether you like it or not, Joel, he's fallen off. Davante Adams fallen off some, but not nearly as much as Aaron Rodgers has. He is still someone that any week can go out there and give you 150 to 200 yards. That Jags game, he was so damn good. What do you have in the first half? Was it 100 plus in that first half against Jacksonville?
He had a quarterback that was feeding him.
He still had a band.
Yeah, bro. He was so good last year. And he's also shown to, with bad quarterback play, he's obviously going to have Stafford, but even with bad quarterback play, when he had some time in Las Vegas, whether it was Derek Carr falling off or the Minshew year, like whatever nonsense that was going on, he was always able to produce. We know how great Davante Adams is. He is stamped as one of the best wide receivers of our era, and going to going to Los Angeles for kind of this twilight of his career where he gets to get paired up with Stafford, McVay, Puka Nacua on the other side. You can't think of a better situation for him.
Yeah, this is amazing. Like, I'm just thinking about him and Sean McVay, like the pairing and the way Sean McVay is going to be able to use him and stretch him all over the floor. Wow, stretch him all over the field. I'm excited about it, man. This is going to be a great pairing. This is going to be probably top 3, top 4 pairing in the league.
Where does this wide receiver duo rank?
Oh, it has to be top 5.
Chase and T were taken?
Chase and T, Tyreek and Waddle. I would take Puka and Devontae Adams.
I would too.
Over them.
Tyreek and Waddle are not better than AJ and Smitty. I'm sorry.
Oh no, AJ and Smitty I would have up there
AJ
too.
and Smitty.
Yeah, show some
Can you
respect.
argue Puka
Yeah, that's a better
and
argument.
Devontae?
Jefferson and Addison.
Jefferson holds a lot of weight in that.
Addison's good though.
But
He's
Puka
that
Nacua this past year was first in yards per route run.
No, he dealt with the
So
injury.
I think he's really like he top
So are
5,
they
top 6
3?
receiver at
Were you
worst.
implying that Puka was better than Jettis?
No, I'm saying Puka Nacua is an elite wide receiver. I
Okay,
think
okay.
He is.
I thought the way you were just.
So are they number 3?
They could be. I think this is on the fly. This is on the fly.
They're probably
100%.
3.
I think they probably are number 3. They could be as high number 2. I think Chase and Higgins are number 1 for me.
Okay.
Stamped.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
think
that's
it's
fair.
stamped.
Yeah, I think the one that's arguable is Jettas and Addison.
Now, but it's hilarious because I think the Rams, after they won a Super Bowl, they signed Allen Robinson. Everybody's like, "Oh my God,
I love
that's such
that
a
signing.
that's
I
such a
drafted
great
him
move."
so in every fantasy
Hey, listen,
league, it
I
was
understand
terrible.
it.
Nice.
I feel like this move is what everybody thought that move was going to be.
Yeah.
I think this is going to make a major difference. Now, number 1, Laramie Tunsil getting traded. Now, we're going to talk about the Texans in just a little bit. It made no sense why they traded Laramie Tunsil, but Laramie Tunsil got traded, and this is why it's number 1. The Commanders, coming off an NFC Championship appearance, they have traded for Deebo Samuel.
Yep.
They have traded for Laramie Tunsil. They are being very aggressive. And Laramie Tunsil, despite what you might say about him, over the last 3 seasons, he has the second best pressure rate allowed in the NFL, only behind Tristan Wirfs, who's arguably the best tackle in the NFL. So I look at that and I say, man, you're protecting Jaden Daniels' blind side when Sam Cosmi comes back. Those are 2 all-pro level caliber players on your offensive line.
You know the Commanders pay Debo, Lattimore, and somebody else more money than we pay AJ, Smitty, and I think Bond. So I think it was something like I saw that tweet and I was like, wow.
Probably from a cap hit perspective, absolutely.
Yeah, like I saw that, I was like, wow, that's kind of crazy. Laramie Tunsil leaves like a sour taste in my mouth just because I watched Texan games and it was always like, yo, big play, flag, coming back, holding Laramie Tunsil. But outside of that, he's still really good. Like outside of the penalties, he's still really, really good. And on the Texans' offensive line, which nobody was really good on, he definitely was the one bright spot, even though he had a lot of penalties. That's the only worry. And I think for the Commanders, having a guy like Jaden who's a little bit more, a lot more mobile than C.J. Stroud, I'd say, and in the offensive system, which I think right now we can say is much easier than what the Texans showed us last year. I'm excited for this. I mean, Washington is making outside of one move, which was nuts. But they're making moves right now to complement what they have in their quarterback, and they're just coming off an NFC Championship game. You can't be complacent. You can't sit there and hide anything. You got to go all in and make the moves needed. And as you can see on that list, outside of Kinlaw, yeah, outside of
everything was great,
nasty overpay, they've done really good. Like they've done really good.
This we do our short form content. We do dream scenarios for all of these offseason teams. The Commanders are the only team, I think, and maybe Chicago, that are putting a dream offseason together. You get the Deebo Samuel trade, about a week ago at this point. 5th round pick, easy. You send that with your eyes closed. You need a wide receiver 2 desperately. Diami Brown also left for Jacksonville, I believe.
Yep.
So you need to replace him in some of the big plays that he was able to do, especially in the postseason. But Laramie Tunsil, I didn't think was available, first of all, right? Especially because you're not paying CJ Stroud. You don't have to pay him for a couple of years. Will Anderson as well. There's not a lot of guys that are coming up within the next, at least, calendar year. So it didn't make sense. Stingley, because Sauce is also due for a contract extension. So Stingley's definitely due. But you mentioned Joel. I don't really give a damn about the penalties if you're going to be the second best tackle in terms of pressures allowed over the last 3 seasons. You have shown year in and year out to be one of the most reliable and one of the most elite tackles, let alone on your blind side, on the left side, where you got to protect your star quarterback in CJ Stroud. So the penalties are boring, the penalties are annoying, I'm sure. but I will easily take those penalties. He could have 20 penalties next season, 30 penalties. If he's going to give me the production that he's been giving these last 3 years, it's a no-brainer move.
And the penalties are all about, for the most part, communication. It might not even be his
false
fault.
Starts too.
Yeah,
I feel like.
it might not
He
even
really
be
does.
all of his fault. It might just be the offensive line as a whole. They're not on the same page. So we'll see if that changes in Washington. Now, the top 10 list. Laramie Tunsil, number 1. Devontae Adams to the Rams, number 2. Milton Williams to the Patriots, number 3. Charvarius Ward to the Colts, number 4. Drew Dahlman, number 5 to the Bears. Josh Sweat, number 6 to the Cardinals. DJ Reed to the Lions is number 7. Dre Greenlaw to the Broncos is number 8. Carlton Davis to the Patriots is number 9. And Ryan Kelly to the Vikings is number 10. Now we're going to go and talk about the winners and losers. The main event of this show, of this stream. Who won and who is losing day 1 of free agency. First name up, winners. The Los Angeles Rams.
Oh, comfortably. Listen, they brought in Poona Ford. You know, they brought in Devontae Adams.
They brought in Coleman Shelton.
They've essentially said let's start from the beginning. They brought back Stafford, and I think that right there was the most important move. That was the game-changing move, because if you don't bring him back, you probably don't make all these moves. You probably think about going in a different direction. But you make that move and you decide, you know what? In our eyes, we felt like we could have beat the Eagles, and we felt like we would have walked Washington down. Feel like we would have been in a championship game fighting tooth and nail with the Rams. Let's do it again. Let's retool. And they've retooled. You know, I think we can expect them to have a really good draft based off what they've had last year, which was bringing in a ton of young talent. You know, they brought in veteranship like Devontae Adams. They brought in Poona Ford. They brought in quality players. The Rams are walking into tier 1, in my opinion. You have the Eagles. You have Detroit. I think the Rams are that third team in. You can sneak Minnesota in there, depending on how JJ plays, is the toss-up. But the Rams comfortably walk into that tier. Commanders are another team you definitely want to put in that tier. That's 4 teams already in tier 1. The Rams, I think, probably have the best chance out of the Detroit Rams and the Commanders because they have the best quarterback.
Yeah, I'm damn ready to put Detroit out, for being honest. But don't forget, too, hold on. You saw Jimmy Garoppolo get $11 million, and you said Justin Fields for 20. Oh, my God, that's crazy.
Jimmy Garoppolo might be better than Justin Fields.
You don't even believe that.
Bro, be so
You think
serious.
that's crazy?
He's
I don't
terrible,
think that's crazy.
actually.
What is Justin Fields
Justin Fields
shown?
not terrible. He's not terrible. He's not terrible. Stop. Enough. I'm tired of this.
Take him out of Kyle Shanahan's system.
He's
What's
garbage.
Jimmy Garoppolo doing?
I don't know. He went to the Raiders. It's hard to evaluate anybody
Gardner
on the
Minshew
Raiders.
was better than Jimmy Garoppolo with the Raiders.
He was also like not that good at
That's
all.
my point.
Yeah.
They're both awful.
Yeah. I mean,
Justin Fields is better than both of them put together.
Justin Fields is comfortably better
Stop
than Jimmy
disrespecting
Garoppolo.
you think that Justin
Comfortably.
Fields is comfortably better than Gardner Minshew?
Justin Fields
Yes.
or Bo Nix, no
You're
troll.
crazy. Bo Nix.
By how much?
Comfortably.
Like we don't look at that situation and think Justin Fields can do what he did.
no, that's disrespectful. Actually.
I don't think so.
I'm taking Bo Nix.
I don't think it's far off.
Bo Nix, just his rookie year, has done more than Justin Fields ever has.
He's older.
He is. They're probably the same age. They probably are the same age. Anyhow, the Rams, yeah, great offseason so far. We talked about Devontae Adams, talked about Poona Ford, Jimmy G, 1 year, $11 million. He's going to get his back to stay in LA and do
Quality backup.
whatever else he wants to do out there in LA. Yes, I mean, we talked about it already, but this is a great offseason for them so far, and it felt needed too, right? This was the last couple of seasons. They always felt like a dark horse when the Rams shouldn't be a dark horse. You have Sean McVay, you have Matt Stafford, and Schuler's really coming on as one of the better defensive minds in the NFL too. This should be a team year in, year out, as long as you have those guys, that's a championship contender. Poona Ford, Devontae Adams gets you in that direction.
The next winner, the Chicago Bears. Now, Drew Dahlman signed 3 years, $42 million. They also signed Grady Jarrett to a 3-year, $43.5 million deal. And they signed Dayo Odeyingbo to a 3-year, $48 million deal, along with all the trades that they made. We know Joe Tooney, Jonah Jackson. I love their offseason. I think the offensive line overhaul was the biggest A+. I'm a big fan of Dayo Odeyingbo from the Colts. There are so many moments where I'm watching him on film and he pops off the screen. He can play inside. He can play out. He's a bigger defensive end. He has a lot of power and also speed. I don't think he's tapped into what he can fully be in the NFL just yet. And I know right now you look at his contract and you look at $16 million, feels like a lot of money.
Yeah.
I just feel like teams also realize that he has a lot of potential. And I think if he can reach just the surface of it with the Bears, it's going to age perfectly for them.
Sorry, NBA, but the Nuggets just beat fire out the Thunder.
They did, and Jokic outplayed SGA. Yeah.
Hauser at 30 tonight.
Oh, he did? Oh, shout out to him. I like Hauser.
Played the Jazz.
Yo, I think we might break even in bets.
Oh, yeah, why?
Mikal Bridges isn't going to average 18 points a game.
How much is he averaging this
He's
year?
going to average like 15, 16.
Okay, well, the Bears won the offseason.
Facts.
So,
Let me-
what do you think about the Bears winning?
Chicago, man. I think DJ Moore's back this year, Dels.
Okay.
Yeah, listen, I heard the slander. I heard the disrespect. I called him the other day, and he was like, "Yo, Riff, me and Caleb, we just wasn't on the same page. I was being stubborn." He's locked in. They're locked in, and I think their offensive line is going to improve drastically. I think you still have quality weapons. I do think DJ Moore, Rome Odunze is a fine 1-2 punch. I don't think DJ Moore is falling off a cliff. I just think it was a down year. I think Rome Odunze could still give you quality. I think that's a fine 1-2 you got. Still really young. You have Caleb Williams. I'm interested in that running back group because I think Ben Johnson, I don't think those running backs fit his style or his scheme. I think he's going to draft a running back. But one thing about Ben Johnson is he can push out a really good run game, so that's something that you can see going. Defensively, you have guys like Jalen Johnson, who's all pro, Montez Sweat, Javon Dexter, Jaquan Brisker. Like, this team is really good on the defensive side. Like, they have their moments. So I think right now you're looking at this offensive line, you're building that up. I would love to see them attack more on the defensive side, maybe go for like 1 or 2 offensive players, because I think Cole Kmet is still a quality tight end. So really attack that defensive side in the draft. But Chicago, man, I like what they've done with their offensive line. That was their main need. That was the main thing people kept complaining about last year. And they were like, all right, boom, that's out the way. We fixed that.
It's the most boring part of building a team, but it's the most important. It's the trenches. If you just looked at what they did last year in the offseason, early in the offseason compared to this year. I mean, last year, what were their first couple of moves? You went out there and signed DeAndre Swift. You went out there and you traded for Keenan Allen. You got Rome Odunze. It's like, oh my God, look at these weapons. The receiver room is the best in the NFL, and we got enamored with that. But we see every single year the teams that are going to the championship games or division round, the playoffs. Number one, they have a top quarterback, which I think Caleb is, but the trenches are usually always elite. At least one side, offensive line or defensive line, and you go through all of the signs they made, right? You trade for offensive lineman Jonah Jackson, offensive lineman Joe Tooney. You sign Drew Dahlman, offensive lineman. You bring in multiple guys on the defensive line, Grady Jarrett and Dio as well. It's all building through the trenches in the offensive line and defensive line. That's what Detroit did, right? That's how Detroit became this powerhouse, was getting guys on those sides of the ball. And once you have the trenches filled out, it's, I wouldn't say easy, but it makes life easier when you have Amon-Ra St. Brown. You're like, oh, we don't really have a wide receiver too. Jameson Williams is kind of coming on. Oh, Laporta has a good rookie year, but second year falls off a bit. But as long as that offensive line is stable, it just allows the quarterback so much time in the pocket, and you have a creative play caller in Ben Johnson to get his guys open. They've had the best offseason so far to me.
The Patriots are another winner. Milton Williams, Robert Spillane, Carlton Davis, Morgan Moses, Josh Dobbs is the backup quarterback, Harold Landry. They also signed Mac Hollins.
Oh, Mac Hollins was cool for Buffalo last year.
I thought Mike Hollins, Tutu Atwell got $10 million a year. Mac Hollins got $5 million.
Mac Hollins is a very good blocking wide receiver.
He got a couple moments the Chiefs game, right?
50-50 balls. Yes.
He played his role really well. He's somebody who comes in and plays his role really well. It was at times he was their best wide receiver.
I think we look at this Patriots offseason, the free agency period, and the Patriots defensively, I think they're solidified now.
Yep.
Offensively, still some question marks.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the Harold Landry signing, you mentioned it earlier, was definitely the biggest question mark because he didn't get paid like a top edge rusher, right? He didn't get obviously $40 million like Myles Garrett got, but he got paid to be more than just a run stopper. And he's coming off the worst year of his career, where he was dead last in pass rush win rate, where he had the lowest pressures of his career. But that's really the only sign I'm looking at kind of with a side eye. And even still, he's reuniting with Mike Vrabel, and I wouldn't be surprised if he gets back to being one of the better pass rushers in the NFL. But everyone else across the board, of course, you got the big fish in Milton Williams. Carlton Davis was amongst one of the highest paid guys this season. But Morgan Moses was one of my favorite signings too. He's 34, 35 years old. He's dealt with a ton of injuries, but year in and year out, he's one of the most, I shouldn't say durable because he has injuries, but he always plays through the injuries, right? Yeah. And he's one of the toughest guys in the NFL. He also brings a veteran presence to that locker room who has a ton of young guys as well. Morgan Moses is one of the better value signs to me. Only $8 million per year for a guy that last year was an average tackle for a majority of the season. Great move for the Patriots so far.
They're trying to build the trenches like Dell's mentioned, trying to shore up that defensive line, bringing in Milton Williams. They have guys on the outside and secondary with Carlton Davis and Christian Gonzalez. I think the Patriots defense, they had moments last year where they were really good. The year prior, if their offense was a little better, they could have pumped out a really good defense also. So statistically, if they've had better offense, they could have had better defenses statistically. I think this year we're going to see a little bit more of that. I think this year we're going to see a real rugged defensive grunted you, especially with Mike Vrabel out there, like a guy who is known for that. I'm excited for New England because this is a team where you have a new face in Drake May. You have a couple good young players on the defensive side that are fan favorites. I'm excited for it.
I'm interested to see what they do with Joe Milton.
Yeah, because they signed Josh Dobbs, so Milton might be on the move.
Because Milton,
somewhere.
that week 18, oh my God, he was looking like a superstar.
So the Indianapolis Colts next winner on the board, getting Cameron Bynum and Charvarius Ward. Cam Bynum 4 years, $60 million. Charvarius Ward 3 years, $60 million. We talked about Charvarius Ward at length in the top 10 list, so we could just breeze by this. Next team, Denver Broncos. Talanoa Hufanga, DJ Jones, Dre Greenlaw. Dre Greenlaw made our top 10 list. We talked about Hufanga a lot. These are just two veteran players added to the Denver Broncos defense that they have championship experience. Now it's just about fixing the offense, but they've been great in the free agency period. And last team that won, the Carolina Panthers, sneakily. Trayvon Merrick, 3 years, $51 million. Patrick Jones II, 2 years, $20 million. Tershawn Wharton coming from the Chiefs. He got 3 years, $54 million. J.C. Horn got re-signed. Bobby Brown III, 3 years, $21 million. They are now building up this defensive line to help out Derek Brown.
It's about time. Talk
about your Panthers, man.
Listen, I'm excited for them. And y'all know how I feel about J.C. Horn, man. Y'all know I've been here in the trench work with my brother.
Ahmad's going to get more.
He's better. But J.C. Horn, the story is there, man. Been dealing with a ton of injuries throughout his career. Last year it was probably relatively one of his best healthy seasons. And he played really, really well, man. He played really, really well. I don't think he should have got all that money, but I'm excited for him because you don't know if he's going to be healthy next year. This is a guy who's been dealing with injuries damn near his whole career, and it's kind of stunted his potential because he was on pace to be a really, one of the 10 best corners in football. But like you mentioned, Derek Brown, this Carolina's team is sneaky. And they scared the hell out of me when my Eagles played them last year. And you saw a trend with Bryce Young after he started to start, a trend in the right direction. You draft really well with that offense. And this is a team that could win that division. This division is kind of how I look at the Texans division. This division isn't hard.
Over the Bucks.
I think that's definitely a conversation. I don't think Tampa Bay is a bad team by no means, but I don't think they're these dominant. I don't think they're Minnesota. I don't even think they're Green Bay, and Green Bay is the third best team potentially in their division.
They got Hassan Reddick.
Yeah, he's dope. He's dope. He hasn't really played in like a year for real. But I like what Carolina's done. They're building right, and they figured out that they have something in Bryce. It may not be everything, but it's something.
Man, Loki re-signing Andy Dalton a week or two ago. He's someone that I think matters a lot to Bryce Young in the quarterback room, just having a veteran there. And Bryce was fantastic second half of the year. Once he came back from being benched, he was great. He was amongst the league leaders, if not number one in big time throws since he became the starter, about halfway through the season. But the only thing I really want to see from them is just get aggressive at wide receiver. I think running back Hubbard last season was phenomenal. He was one of the bright spots for that team. But I would like to see this team with more than just Adam Thielen and Coker and Mingo and Leggett. Like, this is a wide receiver core that is young guys. I think a couple of them are talented and you're excited for, but I don't know if any of them you're like, oh, that's definitely gonna be our wide receiver too. I think Coker the end of the year got some hype build around his name, but they definitely need some more help on offense still.
Now going on to the losers, the LA Chargers we spoke about. They didn't really make any moves to fix the interior of the offensive line while we were on stream. They signed Najee Harris. And that was a little bit questionable, but yeah, like the Chargers definitely lost. We have to wait and see what they do in the entirety of the offseason because they could have a really good draft, but then again, they're rookies, so we never know. The Houston Texans.
Yeah.
I feel like this is something we have to talk about at least a little bit because you trade Laramie Tunsil. This was an offensive line that was bad last year, and you traded the best player on the offensive line. Like, no matter how annoying his penalties might have been, this was the best dude at protecting CJ Stroud, and you traded him.
How do you feel about a year 3 bounce back now?
I'm still I'm still confident because I trust in my brother's ability. You know, me and Twin, we go way back, man. But you still have Nico Collins, who I think is a top 7 wide receiver at minimum.
Joe Burrow's able to do it.
Listen, yeah, and I agree, and I think CJ's better. You know, just kidding. I'm just kidding. You still have Nico Collins.
What means that?
You still have Nico Collins. You brought in Christian Kirk, who I think is still really good. I think Tank Dell eventually, when he comes back next year,
He's gonna be out
solid.
all of next year.
Oh God, that really hurts.
Well, they have Christian Kirk, and then they have
signed
Nico
Kirk Cox,
Collins.
Yeah, Nico's gonna get bracketed. He's gonna get double teamed. The running game is still gonna be what it's gonna be, inefficient. It's gonna be tough. I don't know where the direction. Like, I don't understand how you watch this Texan team go into the playoffs, beat the Chargers when they weren't supposed to. Give Kansas City a semi good fight. Like, the game wasn't terrible. CJ played really well. The defense played really well, and then you decided you move off Slowick. I think that was the right decision. And then you just trade away Laramie Tunsil. You don't make any big moves. Not even big moves. You just don't bring moves around the margins. Like, I think the defense is going to be great. It's going to be the backbone of this team because offensively, this is what held them back last season. And a lot of people put the stress on CJ and all that. And I get all that. He's the quarterback. But God damn, as you can see, they don't make it easier for him at all.
They don't. And this is a team that I feel like is going to get trapped into we're a defensive-minded team that's going to run the ball with Joe Mixon behind a bad offensive line. And Mixon's not even really an efficient running back. I know the numbers last year looked really good, but he's not somebody that's really making explosive plays. He's not ripping off 40 to 50-yard touchdowns. And if you don't have that as a running back, it's hard to be a really great offense if you don't have someone that can carry you that way. So I am a bit nervous in the direction they're going with, but the defense is so good when you have Danielle Hunter and Will Anderson and Stingley and these dudes that you're going to be in every game. And as we've talked about at length, the division's so bad that they should still be favored to win the division. But you're not making it easy for your quarterback who's coming off a bad year, who is probably after next season going to be looking to get paid as well. So the receivers are great. You have to have some faith in the new offensive coordinator because Slowick was a disaster down the stretch, but I don't like the direction they're headed in right now.
Jaw 29-12, and they won.
The Miami Dolphins, the next team that lost. Now, I feel like they lost because they didn't make any offensive line moves. Then the stream happened, and they signed James Daniels. I think that's a start, and I think James Daniels, he's coming off an Achilles injury, but if he can get back to the level he was at before, he can be really good. So I like that signing.
You know who the Dolphins got, though?
Who?
They got that guy.
Zach Wilson.
Zach Wilson, 1 year, $6 million.
Hey, listen,
really got
if he got to come in and play, I think Zach Wilson in that offense will ball out.
Yeah, I'll be honest. Y'all know how I feel about the Dolphins. Blow it up. Y'all know how I feel about the Dolphins. They don't have much money, and they're about to lose Javon Holland, which is probably their premier secondary player, definitely their best safety. Jalen Ramsey's still great. I want to say that, but he is getting up there in age. Tyreek Hill is also another guy that's been flirting with retirement, flirting with potentially leaving. Waddle's coming off a bad injury-riddled year. Tua is Tua. Devon Achane was not as efficient as he was at the beginning of the year. Raheem Mostert, I don't even know if he's there or not, but he's up there in age.
Resigned.
Yeah, like this team is just, it's either old or they just don't have enough. And they don't have enough at a lot of positions, and the most important positions, which are quarterback, offensive line, and defensive line. We talk about the trenches a lot. Dels, I'm sure you're going to bring up how skinny and light their offensive line is, which you love to bring up. It's the God honest truth. They love the flashy weather. Miami, it's beautiful. It's the glim and the glamour. But when it's time to get cold, when it gets a little rugged, when it gets football weather, when they have to travel, we know this Miami team folds under pressure. And it starts with their coach, who Mike McDaniels has not been his best self. He's fallen off actually every year since he's been there. And Tua is not that guy.
Yeah, this is part of the paying your quarterback, right? Last year, you lose Robert Hunt, you lose Christian Wilkins. This year, you're probably going to be losing Javon Holland, and you're not really in the market for any noteworthy free agent, whether that's offense or defense. And unironically, Zach Wilson matters. Like, Zach Wilson could be very important for this team because Tua has, one season out of the last 3 or 4 that he's been able to stay healthy. There's a real chance Zach Wilson is playing meaningful games for this team. And on one hand, when Zach was at his best was when he only had to make 1, maybe 2 reads, got the ball out quick, and use his athleticism. On the other hand, and I think that works in Miami, right? That's what they do already. So I think that fits him. On the other hand, though, you're banking on Zach Wilson to play like probably at any point 4 weeks next season that you're gonna hope and pray that he go 500 in, and he hasn't really shown the ability to do that. But with some weapons there, maybe you have some faith. But he's going to be an important piece. Like, we're joking about it, but he's an important piece.
I mean, the year with Aaron Rodgers, didn't the Jets, when Aaron Rodgers got hurt, didn't the Jets start out 7-5?
Yeah. I mean, even the year prior, or 2 years prior.
7-5.
Wait, the year he tore his Achilles?
Yes.
Were we 7-5?
7-5?
I mean, the year we
I think that was with Fitz.
what's it called? The year 2, Zach, when we were like 5-2,
Yes.
like that. I remember that. I don't remember what.
I mean, Zach wasn't showing he could play winning football before in
Oh, but when
situations.
Justin Fields does it, it's just
Zach just-
5-4 in 2022, 4-7 in 2023.
Yeah, 7-5
he won
is
just as many games as
egregious.
Aaron Rodgers, pretty much.
Yeah, wasn't say about Rodgers.
Next loser, Tennessee Titans, Dan Moore. This is why they
Yeah,
lost.
there was.
They signed Dan Moore to a 4-year, $82 million deal, and he ranked 44th out of 87 offensive tackles this past season, and he allowed 41 pressures. Now, this move does allow them to now move J.C. Latham back to right tackle. So this was kind of like 2 moves in one. You get a left tackle, you move your rookie back to right tackle where he's much more natural. So I think that makes sense there. But, the Titans really back-to-back off seasons that they're dishing out a lot of money. I know that, this is just one player, but this is a lot of money for a player who is a below average tackle.
This feels like, and it's not exactly apples to apples, but when the Rockets had to pay somebody a couple years ago and they gave Fred 40 a year, it's like, holy shit, Fred. But Fred's like a player that can contribute, and Moore's gonna play and start. But this felt like a move where a team was like, holy shit, we have all this cap money, like we got to give it to somebody, right? So listen, maybe he outplays what he did last year, but up until this point, he wasn't
stole.
really worth 80 million, 50 guaranteed. Yeah. I mean, you're becoming one of the highest paid tackles off rip, and really don't have any seasons to back that up.
No, he's at the crib chilling. Like, yo, bro, I just stole 50 mil from the Tennessee Titans.
I mean, look at Bill Callahan. He's like a legendary offensive line coach. So maybe like he sees something in him. We don't know. Last loser, Green Bay Packers. Really, this is why they lost. The Aaron Banks contract was terrible. They're paying him $19 million per year. Among all players with 100 snaps at guard, Joe Thuney and Quentin Miners were best with a 1.9 pressure rate allowed. Packers offensive lineman, new one, Aaron Banks, he ranked 53rd at 5.6%. He had his best season last year. Even then, he was like the 5th best 49ers offensive lineman, and he got the same contract as Josh Sweat. You think about what the Packers needed: pass rusher, a premier position, and they decided to pay a guard when they just drafted a guard in the first round last year in the draft.
Yeah.
It just made no sense to me. And if you're gonna give somebody 19 mil, I'd rather overpay Josh Sweat a little bit, give him 22 mil, come to Green Bay. They really needed an edge rusher opposite of Rashawn Gary desperately.
Yeah, I agree. And I think I think Green Bay, for me, they need a lot. They need game changers on both ends. I think they're stuck in a position where I think their team is good. I think they have a lot of young talent on the defensive side. Green Bay can draft well, and then their secondary is really, really good. But I don't love their trenches. I really don't on the defensive side. I really think Rashawn Gary is a good player, but he's either banged up or he just doesn't give you that consistent stardom that you want.
Yep.
And I think offensively they have a lot of needs at the wide receiver. Wicks can be a star, sure. Jaden Reed could be a star, sure. But when is it going to happen? When are we going to get that actual year-long production from any one of these guys? Christian Watson, people still believe in. So I think for Green Bay, not doing anything troubles me because you're a team where you saw Detroit, you saw the Commanders, you saw Philly, you saw Minnesota. You need to get there. And you are kind of falling behind in that department. So now you're sitting in that conversation. Oh, and the Rams too, add them. You need to keep up with those teams because you fell behind last year.
Yeah.
Now you're sitting in a tier with potentially Chicago.
So now the 49ers and Dolphins have each made offers to free agent edge rusher Joey Bosa.
Here we go.
In the same relative price range. So Joey Bosa is going to get to pick between the Niners playing with his brother
He better go to
or
the Niners,
playing in Miami with the Miami Dolphins.
That'd be fire.
So Joey Bosa next up potentially could be off the market now. So rattle off the winners and losers real quick. Winners, the Rams, Bears, Patriots, Colts, Broncos, Panthers, and losers, Chargers, Texans, Dolphins, Titans, and the Packers. And that is going to do it for our time on Bleacher Report. We want to thank you guys for watching. We want to thank the producers that are putting this all together, the graphics behind the scenes, they've done an amazing job. And free agency day one, I think it was a success. So
Absolutely.
many moves happened.
Absolutely.
I'm excited about it. Listen, man, I hope we get a lot more spoilers. I hope we get a lot more dangerous moves. But first day was great.